All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Money. Great to have you aboard. Jumping on a little bit early here this morning, and this video will be posted by the normal time. So if you're hearing me a half-hour delay, no big deal. I'm going to make any challenge trades that are needed here at the end of this video. So far, it looks pretty much flat. There's nothing really out there. I'll show you, but we'll kind of reassess things at the end of this video here. But very sluggish open here in the market today. We saw overnight futures do something a little interesting. Not a ton. Here we have the high from yesterday, and here we have the kind of sell-off low from yesterday. And then, we get this little dip here before Asia markets open up, right? And again, we're talking about a 10-point range. This is a pretty microscopic range here. We're pretty zoomed in to this range. But then, European or Asia markets are trading. Asia markets are up. We get this nice kind of 10-point rally. And then Europe opens. And boom, down we go, break some of the lows, during this European session. And then climb on back into the U.S. session, and you kind of see since the U.S. session we've been just chopping around, zero here. But some interesting action, meaningful, no. No, not at all. In fact, it's one where you can't look at this and zoom out and say, well, this has any significance in any way, shape, or form to some sort of change, right? Is it significant? Does it have meaning? Well, yeah, it means nothing's changing, right? Conditions are still the same. We look across the board. We have just as much red as green here today. You could argue, yeah, maybe something is changing, right? You look at Microsoft upgraded again here this morning and is trading down. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting, right? But nothing more than that. Nothing more than interesting. When it comes down to it, we don't see a major change in the U.S. dollar. We don't see a major change in bonds. We don't see a major change in gold, in oil. It's all pretty flat, pretty benign moves here for the major components of the market. The scans here, right? We're holding gold for the challenge. I'm going to continue to hold that, barring some sort of massive change here. If we look at the crossovers, you can see there are no upside crossovers on the list here today. There's only one on the downside, at least so far. Again, we'll see what these look like in a little bit. But, it's Twilio. This one had an upside crossover yesterday. I thought it might trigger. It didn't. And now today has a downside crossover, and we've seen a lot of that out there, throughout many stocks in the market over the last while. And it has been pretty hefty. We do see a little pullback in a few areas, but for the most part, stocks that have been strong like Halliburton, I know it sold off into the close yesterday, and all right, it's rallying right on back here, and in a very solid fashion. But not really giving any sort of, wiggle room to enter. Now, yesterday I was asked, Jeff, are there any setups you like out there in the market going into year end? Anything kind of catch your eye that you're trading? And my initial response was, no, not really, right? No, not really. But yesterday I did, have the chance for the first time in about a week to really comb through things in a very thorough manner, get back to my routines. And, there were a few things that I looked at and I said, okay, this is getting interesting or something that I'm interested in. For the most part, I'm in the camp that we're going to have a significant pullback, right? I don't think it's going to be a small pullback. I think it's going to be a very significant pullback. But I'm also not in the camp where I'm playing it aggressively or even in very much at all. I have one small SPY put spread. That's it. And it's very low exposure. In fact, I have more upside exposure than downside right now. But for me, I'm watching. I'm looking for the signs that, hey, you know what, the market's ready to roll. And so far, we talked about it yesterday. It's still early. There's no sign of it, right? I can feel as grizzly as I want. I can feel as bearish as I want. I can come up with all the technical reasons we should go down, and the fundamental, and the seasonal, and all the other reasonings why we should go down. But let's face it, they're offset by some upside reasonings, right? And right now, the price action is still strongly in the bull's favor in terms of the overall market. So I look at options. I look at the way the end of the year tends to trade, and I'm happy to be in mostly cash, waiting for waiting for some sort of downside signal to come in. And as I mentioned yesterday, I think it's going to be fairly obvious. I don't think it's going to be one of those where you're zoomed in like we did this morning here on S&P futures, and you're zoomed in going, oh, is that now that the move? Or we sell off a little bit into the close yesterday and go, oh, is that the move? No, it's going to be significantly more obvious, and those are anything but obvious. So it's just one where, for me, I'm willing to be patient. I'm willing to, let things ride out for a little while. The strength is there in the market, and it just can't be. It can't be underestimated. It'll be very, very costly if it's underestimated. And so, for the most part, I'm happy to kind of just sit, kind of wait, wait for, that opportunity to come. And in the meantime, watching some of my favorite stocks and going, okay, is this an opportunity to buy, right? For instance, here's Boeing, right? This is one where I created a starter position on Boeing right back here. And I'm not heavily exposed at all. I would like to get more exposure going into next year. We've seen another pullback back to these lows. Is this an opportunity to go and get in? So, I went and did my homework a little bit yesterday on Boeing. I do like this price level a lot. But when you look at what's going on, right, and you look at the Boeing versus the regulatory agencies, right now, it really looks as if some of the regulatory agencies or some members of the regulatory agency are looking to make a name for themselves, right? They're not going to back down, and they're going to continue to press. They're not going to allow for an easy solution, for it. And it's one of those situations that I thought we would see some of the last of it, back here on this October dip. But as I kind of watch what's playing out right now, I look and I go, okay, this is enough catalyst to potentially drive it below 300. Well, yes, I believe it's a $430, $440 stock. It still has that risk factor of moving below 300. So, not a dip that I'm willing to go into. Step in yet, kind of the way, a Netflix, and, every time this dips, you hear me talk about it. And I was very disappointed that we did not see a challenge signal come in on Netflix on the upside crossover. I was very disappointed. But it's just one of those. It's going to continue to have some of these news dips where, investors get all twisted and get all, into this whole Disney thing and everything else. But yeah, this is one of the best stocks going into next year. I want to be exposed. I want to be involved. Another one that I'm very bullish on going into next year is Twilio, and I'd like to be a buyer. I just haven't had the opportunity yet that I'm comfortable with. And I've been watching this thing slide for 4 months, looking for an opportunity, it feels like it's getting closer, but so far, just isn't quite there. So for me, for the most part, the stocks that I'm watching that I'd like to be involved with, overall, they're just not set up for me to want to get in. There's a lot of ambiguity, right? I like Visa, right? I do. I no secret about that. I like Visa. I like it to go to new highs. But at the same time, can I get in right here? No, I really can't. I don't have something where I look and I go, wow, I have a massive advantage on the risk-reward side here with it. One area that I do think going into next year, and I haven't seen it talked about very much, but the area that I think we could see be one of the strongest next year is energy. Now, this has been a hated sector, and for good reasons. And if we back this out to a weekly chart, you can see this thing has been, it's gone nowhere in 3 years, right? It's absolutely gone nowhere. And it's a group of stocks that has had some overhang on it with oil prices, with the global economy. It's had an overhang on it with the Saudi Aramco IPO, which is done, which has happened. And so a lot of the money that was being saved for that is no longer having to be saved for that. And so, investors can go get into other spaces in energy. We have a preliminary trade deal. We see some of the economics starting to tick up a little bit. It's not en masse, right? It's not en masse. It's still a little nervy. But one of the characteristics of a late cycle economy, late cycle market economy, is that we see energy perform very well at the end. And I'm just going to come in here to 2007 and 2008. Let's clean this up. And here we are on the market itself. And here in 2007, market hit a high here in October of 2007, and never saw higher until 4 or 5 years later, right? So we have that that element of the market. October 2007. Well, look at energy, right? Energy, if we look at this, 2007, going into 2008 for 6 months, had a continued monster rally. And it was one of the top performers along with materials at the end of that cycle. And I would not be surprised, given the valuations, and we've talked about Halliburton in terms of valuations and stuff. Given some of these valuations, I would not be surprised that we see some very significant money come into the energy space next year. And if we look at Halliburton on a weekly chart, the stock has fallen off precipitously here. And this is the first rally that we've seen in Halliburton where we go, there's volume, there's a very strong price uptick here, and it's breaking above recent highs. First time since this whole drop, right? And so we have some very, very strong turning starting to happen in the longer term charts. Now, I would love to see a pullback and, see how it survives a pullback. Can it set a higher low? And I do think ultimately we will see that. But, these energy names from Halliburton to Chevron, right? Chevron, take a look at this consolidation. It's been massive. When this thing breaks out of that consolidation, the move is going to be very strong. In fact, to see Chevron trade above $200 next year, I think is a very realistic possibility. Exxon has not been as strong as Chevron. This thing seems to just be stuck at 70 forever here. But it is one where, we could see start to trade up to that upper side of the range. Conoco, to me, one of the better names out there, in the space. You take a look at what the volume patterns have been into the end of this year. It's a very bullish volume pattern here for Conoco. EOG Resources. So some of these energy names that are really on the cheap right now that, fundamentally are cheap, where, they're still pumping oil and, where they're still, operating pretty effectively. We do have stocks like RIG, Transocean, National Oil Well, Varco, which, look, if energy surges, these stocks are going to surge. But, these are more heavily shorted. They're going to be short squeezed. But to me, they're not part of the energy space that, is real, can put real profits into their bottom line, like a Chevron, like a Schlumberger, like a Halliburton and EOG Resources, but they are a lot more high risk, high reward type plays. And as we go into next year, you'll hear me talk about some of these energy names. Over the years, I love trading in the energy space, and I don't think we've seen a bottoming type of move like this in a very long time, since the beginning of 2016. And, it's one that, certainly want to take advantage of as we start the next challenge next year. You'll notice there will be a few extra oil stocks in there, to try to take advantage here of a move in oil going into the next year. So, that's one of the spaces I really think is transform or has some elements to where the negativity can transform into some positivity, right? It's not that we can look at the sector and go, ooh, everything's peachy. No, not at all. But to see it go from that really negative to really positive momentum, I think is a very good chance. And I think it's going to benefit, stocks like Valero, where we could see Valero trade up into the 150s, 160s, and those are some of the things that I'm looking for, going into next year. All right. All right, now for the challenge, we have GLD on the board. Let's see where that's at. Down about 9 cents here. Same spot as it's been. It's just stuck here at 139. So gonna hold it. I'll make a decision on it here this afternoon. We still have the stock price green, but we're down about $100 on the options, just from the time decay there with it. So going to hold that. As far as any new signals, I'm running the scan right now. Just running it right now on my other screen, but I'll show you the crossovers. It's still just Twilio on the downside, and on the upside there is nothing. So I'm not expecting my scan to come back with anything, but it is still running here, and we'll see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, nothing there. Twilio is on the. It does show bearish here on Twilio with a medium consolidation risk, so that could change by the close. We could see it turn bearish by the close. If it does, we'll go out and trade that. Keep an eye on two stocks here today: Microsoft and Micron. These are two stocks that caught upgrades again here this morning. They've been upgraded a lot, and they caught upgrades again here this morning. If these two stocks reverse and end significantly red, meaning Microsoft down $2, Micron down $1, I think if you're bearish and you're looking for something, I think that gives you something pretty grisly. But again, it would need to be that type of scenario, that type of situation. Other than that, Bulls still in charge overall when it comes down to things. All right. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a fantastic day, and I'll be back on here with you this afternoon, and we'll talk to you then. Take care.